the most painful and difficult to swallow places. That's the birthplace of creativity, man. That's when we learn what we've got that we didn't even know we had. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to this week's episode of the Trauma Mamas. I am wellness coach and personal trainer Kelly Coffey. I am here with the benevolent, compassionate, and kind-hearted Sue Jones. Hello, Sue. How are you, darling?
Hi, Kelly. I'm doing good.
Wonderful. I did actually want to talk about one very specific thing. There's a gentleman who has a history of acting named Will Smith, who at a certain award ceremony called the Oscars actually got up on stage and smacked the shit out of a comedian named Chris Rock. And it was a moment of pure clarity for me, because while all the people around me who had witnessed this were like, oh my God, can you believe? I don't believe. Holy shit. Da, 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 da. I thought to myself, of course he did that, because I know in that moment he was awash with embarrassment and self-consciousness, because he had just laughed at a moment when he should not have laughed in front of the entire world. And then he stands up, walks up on the stage, and physically assaults this comedian on live television. And I was like, wow, you want to talk about a guy who has never been on the Trauma Mamas and who has no awareness of his own emotional reactions? That would be Will Smith. He had a powerful emotional experience. He had no awareness of what was going on inside of him. He needed to make it go away, make it stop. So I just wanted to mention that.
He then got up on stage to accept his award and said, quote unquote, love makes you do crazy things, which is an incredibly dangerous message to send. And contrary to Will Smith and his inability to recognize what was happening in his body and his inability to create any kind of pause, Chris Rock was clearly aware of what was happening in his body after he had been assaulted and composed himself so he could do what he was up on stage to do, which was really amazing to watch. You could see that he was in this immediate trauma response after being smacked on national TV. And I have so much respect for the guy, because holy crap, that was insane. It's just going to reverberate for a while, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt about what he did being a trauma reaction too, which I'm not disputing, but you can't just go smacking people around.
Much as we might like to.
Much as you might like to.
I'm thinking only of the emotional reality of those two men in the moment, and so much to be learned from that video. So thank you for chatting with me about that.
I'm really excited about our guest today. We don't know much about Betsy. She came to us by way of a prior guest on the podcast, and I'm just going to go ahead and bring her on in. Betsy, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Betsy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am 39 years old and I live in Houston, Texas. I am a daughter of immigrant parents who came over from Costa Rica. I have two sisters. I did serve a tour in Iraq in 2005, and I worked for the federal government for many years and got burnt out. I'm in my 6th year of teaching. And in December of 2021, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Holy moly, girl.
Your face is priceless.
I mean, take one part of that. What can we help you with today? What do you want to talk about today?
Well, the thing that I wanted to bring to the podcast was that as a strong, independent woman, the one thing that I am resentful or that I yearn for is having a partner who is there for me and strong for me and who I could have had a family with.
And what part of that do you want to talk to us about? Finding someone now, or processing the feelings around not having had that yet?
Wherever the conversation takes us, I guess. I feel like I have to be strong for the people around me. And I don't feel like there is somebody who is strong for me.
That person that can be your strong person, your rock, your support, does that have to be your romantic partner?
So yes, for me, it would be like a spouse.
So that leads to my first question. What exactly is it that you want a significant other there for you to do?
I really would like for somebody to just be there and hug me. Someone that I can be my true authentic self with and be vulnerable with, and who isn't going to judge me for it.
Thank you for that.
It sounds to me like the longing is a relationship that's missing in your life. And at the same time, I know enough about relationships to know that at the end of the day, once the honeymoon period is over and you're kind of everybody's into their lives, that feeling of, I want that person outside of me so that I could feel better inside of me, that sometimes ends up being the source of pain and struggle in a long-term relationship, because once that whole honeymoon period is over, things don't pan out that way every day. I think it would be worth talking about that piece of you that longs for that. And the best case scenario for a relationship is that you learn to be your own person before you even get into a relationship, because the expectation you would have on a partner is something that could cause a lot of friction and resentment in the end.
Mm-hmm. It feels pretty hokey and cliche, but true, that when we finally decide we don't need nothing and no one for nothing, thank you very much, that all of a sudden somebody shows up to be like, oh, hey, how about now? How about me? We're not saying do that, but it is funny how that does work out.
Oh, for sure.
One of the things that you said that really struck me was that you want somebody to be there for you. And what I'm imagining, and you can tell me if I'm off the mark on this, is that you're the strong person and you were in the military. You did a tour in Iraq. I mean, that's badass, right? So you're probably the person that people come to when they need protection or to feel safe or to feel like they can just fall into you. And that you are like, I want that for me. I want that person in my life. Tell me a little bit about that aspect of you.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I am the one that people go to for all types of things. I am the one that provides safety for a lot of people. It goes back to my childhood. When I was 3 years old, my mother slipped and fell at a swimming pool, and she spent the next 8 years on a walker and in bed and traction, and she had surgeries. And so it was like, I basically became an adult at 3 years old. My dad worked, my mom was sick, my sisters were teenagers, and they turned 18, moved out. And I don't blame them for that, because if I had had the opportunity to leave, I would have as well. And so there wasn't anybody truly looking out for me, and there never has been. I am the biggest hurdle in that, but every day I'm getting better at it, because every day that I'm fighting cancer is another day that I need to not be so type A and like release some control.
So what's maybe a little more true is that you have had that sense of sort of security and someone looking out for you and being there for you. It just doesn't look like what you would ideally have it look like, which would be a romantic relationship.
Yes.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for sharing that childhood experience with us. I do think it's really relevant when we have these experiences when we're so young, like the experience you had through no fault of your own. There had to have been a part of you as you were growing up that started to believe that your value was in you being the person that was responsible for not only caring for your mother, but probably keeping things together in the house. And when we grow up that way, we'll bring that sense of worth into our adult life. So it would make sense that if you were given the opportunity to not show up for somebody or to put yourself first instead of last, that it would feel really uncomfortable for you. So the first thing I want to ask you is, does it feel uncomfortable for you to not put yourself first?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And to add salt to the wound, my mother also dealt with stage 4 uterine cancer, had a full hysterectomy, didn't tell me about it because I was 10, chose to tell me when I was 13 out of nowhere.
What did that feel like? Did you feel broadsided, or did you feel like, what were the feelings?
More so betrayal, like a slap in the face. It's like, why didn't you tell me even though I knew something really bad was happening?
So it sounds like you were doing all of these things that you had come to identify as your role in the family, right? Getting all the things, providing all the things, doing all the things. And that on some level, you weren't piecing it together with the reason they needed all that.
Yeah.
Is that correct? You were just kind of doing because it was
right.
The role you had come to adopt.
Mom slipped and fell at the pool when I was 3. She walked with the cane until I was in second grade. She had a year or two that things were good. And then she was diagnosed with cancer. There's a laundry list of things. At one point, my mom tried to commit suicide. My sister found her on the bathroom floor. We had 911 ambulances at our house a lot when I was a kid.
So what I'm really hearing is from the time you probably could remember, you always had to put the needs of your mother first. And there was absolutely no room whatsoever for your needs. It's a total role reversal. It should be the opposite when you're a kid. Your needs should always be prioritized by the parent. But it sounds to me like that was the complete opposite. And so here we are with you having this moment where you're like, I want someone in my life that can prioritize my needs, that can be there for me, because you actually never had that as a child. And at the same time, I would imagine that if Kelly and I were to say to you, all right, let's start to talk about how you can put your needs first, that would feel really uncomfortable for you. But that is actually the thing that is going to be really important for you to learn how to do.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. And this cancer diagnosis is forcing me to make me first.
It sounds like you were doing all of the grunt work, all of the administrative work of taking care of your mom and keeping the household afloat from a very young age and over and over and over again. But you were never shown the respect of being communicated with and being kept in the loop of what was actually going on, which sounds to me like you being given a tremendous lot of responsibility for a relationship that you realized later you weren't even really in, or they weren't even really in with you. And so I wonder, when your mom in hindsight was like, oh, by the way, I had uterine cancer and, 3 years ago while you were doing all those things, and it also makes me wonder if learning that so late made you question the authenticity of your relationship with your parents. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Yeah. This past October, I was down there with them visiting, and I asked my Dad, what was it like for you going to work every day and leaving your wife and your child at home? And he just burst out crying. He's like, that's the hardest thing I ever did. He's like, financially, we needed the money. I knew that you were the one that was being neglected at home. I have PTSD from Iraq, so I'm very open with having these types of discussions. And I said, Dad, do you think that if you had been afforded the opportunity to have someone to talk to and that it wasn't taboo back then, would you have taken advantage of that? And he's like, yeah, I would have. And so it helped me a little bit get a better understanding and process it and chew it, which I'm still chewing it.
I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle, I guess, that you're gaining some compassion for them. But what's also going to be equally important is starting to gain a compassionate understanding of how you became who you became as a result of the experiences you had in childhood, because you were the one giving the care to your mother and not receiving the care from your mother, or the sense of love. What you did develop was a feeling of purpose and worth through inappropriate responsibilities that were given to you. It doesn't matter what the hell was going on with your mom and how late they told you. You shouldn't have been in that role in the first place. So what ends up happening is when we develop this combination of, here's my worth, I am the caretaker, I am the savior, I am the person that is going to come and save the day and make everything better. And we combine that with, I never experienced a sense of unconditional love. You end up becoming an adult that feels so strongly about being that rock, that person, but at the same time, that feeling of being unconditionally loved is still not there. And it makes absolute sense why in your mind, the solution to that problem would be, oh, I just need a romantic partner. But the truth of the matter is, if you lack that feeling from childhood, it's still going to be there, and it will be a problem in a romantic relationship. Allowing yourself to feel vulnerable, to feel unconditional love from somebody, whether it's a friend or anyone else, is a really frightening place to be. It feels super, super risky. And so some of the things that you can do, which to your point, you're sort of being forced to do, is put yourself first and ask for the care that you need. ask for people to be there for you and ask for your needs to be met, it probably brings with it lots of feelings that are the direct opposite of feeling I'm worthy of this care. I'm worthy of this love. In understanding how you grew up, you can actually compassionately understand why those feelings of guilt or shame or whatever are there, because they are there to protect you from expecting unconditional love because it was just never there for you.
You know, I'm sitting here nodding my head. I'm like, that is like the rational part of my brain is like, oh, that totally makes sense. But then the emotional side of my brain is like, okay, that's great. How do I do that? Okay.
In the moment where you need to accept care and somebody's doing something for you, typically, what are the feelings that you have along with gratitude and all of that? What are some of the feelings? Is it feelings of guilt, feelings of shame, feelings of anger?
Definitely shame, frustration in the sense that I am weak. Like I don't feel as strong as I should be, right? Because I'm the one that's always been strong.
To your question, what do I do? We hone in on this experience of shame and we deconstruct it a bit. Shame is defined as the feeling of being unworthy of love and belonging. It challenges your own developed sense of worthiness to receive care. So it makes a lot of sense that shame, that feeling of I am in need right now, and that means I am unworthy of love and of belonging, right? Because the way that you learned to feel worthy was in all the ways that you could take care of your mother and take care of the rest of your family. So that's the first thing to really have an awareness around, because if we're not able to sit in that feeling with a sense of compassion and understanding, we're just going to be stuck in these feedback loops of how we've operated in the world, the thought patterns that come along with it, which would be, I shouldn't need this. I should be stronger than this. This means I'm weak. And it doesn't mean any of that. But those are all the tapes in the mind that come along with the feeling of shame in the body, which is underpinned by the feeling of profound vulnerability. Vulnerability is that space with the unknown. And the place of the known in your life is I do for people, I'm there for people, and therefore I feel worthy. And that is how it is. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Is there any part of you that thinks, my God, my mother was one thing after another with her, and she was constantly weak and constantly flailing, and yet she had a man by her side that whole time. And now in my one moment of need, I feel like I don't have that. And how fucked up is that?
I don't care. I look back at the relationship that my parents have had. I don't want any part of that codependency that you two have. There's a couple things that my mom said to me when I was younger that I took to heart. One of them was, go get your education, become successful so you never have to depend on a man for anything. And it's better to be alone than to be in bad company. They're not bad advice, but they also didn't come with how to be in a loving relationship. So that's the key piece that's missing.
I wonder if this idea of having a romantic life partner, if there's something in you that's saying, well, if I had a romantic partner, then I would have an easier time allowing myself to be cared for, because that's the role of that romantic life partner. And I would be able to accept all of that care and accept someone putting me first, that it would legitimize your desire for that.
Oh, yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. I've actually said that to myself. It's like, I know that I should be vulnerable and I know I should let my guard down. And I know all of these things, but in my head, I've convinced myself that the only way that I can allow myself to do that is when I'm finally in that relationship.
I would venture a guess that if you were to meet somebody that was the kind of person that literally would put you before themselves every time, that you would be not attracted to that person at all, because that person would be challenging everything that you've learned to do to keep yourself feeling safe and feeling worthy. Your original intent of coming here to talk about wanting to get into a romantic relationship, I don't think that that's a bad vision to have for yourself at all. What I don't think is going to be helpful is expecting that relationship to be the thing that suddenly changes everything about how you're wired, and that you suddenly go, yes, now I am willing to accept all the love and care and nurture that someone has to offer me, because you have learned how not to need it. You have learned how not to expect it and not to want it. The way that future relationship that you're going to have is going to be successful is if you already have learned to put yourself first, to allow people to care for you, and to really sit in the discomfort, because it is uncomfortable, of doing something that is totally the opposite of what you learned to do from the time you were a really little girl, which is to allow yourself to be loved.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Let's get down to brass tacks, right? So give you some practical things to take with you from this recording. If you were to sit and make a list, a realistic list, how many people in your life do you have that if you asked for them to be there for you, they would be there for you?
Oh, off the top of my head, I can already name 5.
That's pretty great.
Those people, I have truly cherished them and I value them, and they are the ones that I can talk to literally about anything. I love those women to pieces. And my sisters, my 2 sisters, they would also show up as well.
When you get off the call with us, some things to think about are in those moments when they're showing up for you or when you're asking for something from them, notice if that shame comes up. Notice if your thoughts are going to, I shouldn't be this weak. I shouldn't be needing this care. I feel bad that I'm asking them to help me. Even you can even imagine yourself as a little girl and remind her that the job that she was given was an inappropriate job for a child, and create some space and breathe. Start to change those tapes inside of you, because if you end up finding somebody romantic and expecting them to just be that role for you, it's not going to go the way you envision it going.
I sort of feel like, and please tell me to take a long walk off a short pier if this is totally off the mark, but you are kind of partnered with your medical situation. You have to learn to navigate this relationship and have needs and get them met. And you're sort of being forced into a position of vulnerability like you would be if you were in a relationship. But like the thing about a medical diagnosis is that you are vulnerable and you have no choice. And you have to learn how to navigate that relationship. And you have to learn how to ask for what you need. And you have to learn to lean on and depend on an other. It's sort of like the birth of this powerful relationship between you and what you need, you and what your body needs. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah.
This is an opportunity to practice all of the skills in a sandbox of one, of what will create and pave the way for a healthy romantic relationship in the future.
Well, there's no time like the current present diagnosis to just be vulnerable and figure this out and take this as a very important learning experience, in addition to, kicking cancer's ass. But yeah, I completely agree with you that it is a relationship that I need to essentially nurture and listen to. And I've been very good at my brain telling my body what to do, and I'm forcing myself to let my body tell my brain what to do.
Being able to listen and have the communication go both ways and really nurture that body to brain relationship, such a gift. And those of us who came up hard, that doesn't come easy to us at all. And so when we're sort of forced to our knees by something like a serious medical diagnosis, we kind of had no choice but to learn to listen and learn to respect and have a genuine relationship with our bodies, maybe for the first time.
I hope that we were in some small way helpful today.
Oh, for sure. No, I definitely took a lot of notes, and you put some things into perspective that I definitely am going to continue to process and chew on.
Good. Well, we're looking forward to hearing how things play out from here. Focus on the unconditional love for yourself first, and that person who was the right person is going to find you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. Oh boy, Kelly.
Oh, Sue.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I was thinking when you were talking with Betsy there at the end, it's very often in the most devastating moments of our lives that we have a real shift in our understanding of things. I remember when my entire life crumbled overnight and people were sending me Facebook posts that just said, I love you. And I was like, wait, I think they sent this to the wrong person. I was just so confused that people that I didn't even really know that well were like, I love you. I was like, this is not making any sense to me. But it really did force me to stop and be like, I have an opportunity to change how I interact with the world and how I interact with myself. And that was kind of the beginning of what eventually led to Timbo. You know what I mean?
There's no doubt that the most powerful about faces, the most significant growth starts at the lowest places, the most painful and difficult to swallow places. That's the birthplace of creativity, man. That's when we learn what we've got that we didn't even know we had in us.
Right. I'm so sorry for her cancer diagnosis for sure. But this just feels like you said, it's such an opportunity for Betsy to start changing her life in terms of how she sees herself, the love she allows in, and all of that. And not for nothing, in my experience, people that have such traumatic backgrounds, they end up being like the best people in the world. They
Absolutely,
end up being
exception.
the people that will drop everything and be there for people, and like the ultimate protectors. Not to bring it back to Will Smith, but one of the things that somebody was positing was he grew up in a household where his father physically abused his mother. So he became this protector of women. And so in that moment, that was a trauma response. And that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. And he didn't have any tools and he had no emotional regulation.
I think that goes a long way toward explaining the power of his emotional response. You know, I imagine him not being able to breathe or get his bearings at all in that moment. And that's what sent him up on that stage to deliver the slap that was heard around the world.
The shame now.
Yeah. Oh,
my God, the whole world is talking about him.
Hey, Will, we only work with women. We will make a very specific exception for you. If you would like to be a guest on the Trauma Mamas, email us at emailthemamas@gmail.com. All right, Sue, take good care. I'm so happy Betsy was here. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel.
All right. Please head to our website, leave a review.
We can handle critical feedback. We're grown-ups.
We certainly can. All right, Kelly. Thank you. So appreciate you.
You too. See you next week.
Bye.